My name is Jamin Goecker. I'm a realtor in South Central Alaska, and my mission is to help you to build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family by coaching you in real estate. And today, what we're going to be talking about is how to use the Alaska Marine Highway System, aka the ferry, to get to Alaska. There's a lot of pro tips that I have along the way here, and my just gleaned from the conversations I've had with people who've come up here recently, and actually from my previous experiences as well with being on the Alaska Marine Highway. Before we get started though, do make sure to give this video a like, and if you haven't done so already, do subscribe to the channel so you can receive more information like this in the future. Now, without further ado, let's go and get into today's video talking about the Alaska Marine Highway. So the first thing that I want to point out is, why do people decide to go on the Alaska Marine Highway instead of flying or instead of taking the Alcan? Well, the reason for that is really one of three. Number one, it is going to be way less hassle with getting all your stuff on and getting through to Alaska. That's going to be number one, because pretty much once you get your car, your trailer, everything onto the ferry, that's pretty much it. Like, your part of the job of getting yourself up there is pretty much done. So you've got about 3 to 5 days of just kind of relaxing, reading books, playing board games, doing puzzles, passing the time, and really kind of reconnecting with anyone that's there with you. So that's going to be number one, way less hassle. The other one is it's just way less stress with trying to get through to Alaska, because if you are going on the Alcan, that's all fine and good, but it's gonna usually be more stressful for people just as they're going through the customs with Canada, and I've made videos and podcasts talking specifically about that. But yeah, it's way less stress going on the ferry as well, because again, you just get on there and that's pretty much it. Your part's done. And the third reason people decide to do the Alaska Marine Highway or the ferry instead of going on the Alcan is that it's actually way more scenic, and you see a lot of stuff that you're not going to see really any other way, because you're seeing Southeast Alaska, but it's going to be in slow motion. Because keep in mind, the ferry's not going particularly fast, so it's not like in a car where just oh, that was pretty. Saw it for about 5 minutes and we're done now. So it's going to be a lot slower, so you're going to really be able to take it in, and it's going to be going like round the clock. And like I said, it's going to be Southeast Alaska. These are going to be really kind of small little communities out there, and you're really not going to see these communities any other way. So that's another big perk for why people decide to take the ferry instead of driving. Now, getting into some more nitty-gritty of what it's like when you're actually getting onto the ferry. Once you park your car in there, you've got about 3 to 5 days to kind of just kill time, because you are not going to have Wi-Fi while you're on the boat. One of the many times where I was on the ferry, I got off the boat and found out that my nephew had been born a couple days ago, and I was just hearing about it because we were out on the ferry and there's absolutely no Wi-Fi out there. So that's one thing to keep in mind as you're planning this, that you're not going to have connection to Wi-Fi, and you're going to have to rely on board games. And they do have a little movie theater in most of the ferries that I've been on, but that's a movie, and a lot of people are used to a lot more distractions these days. So yes, that for a lot of people can be stressful initially, but it's actually pretty nice after 3 to 5 days of not having Wi-Fi. It kind of feels like a detox. Another nice thing about the ferry is, yes, you can in fact bring your pets with you. They're going to have certain times of the day where you can go down to the bottom decks where the car is, walk your dog around. They need to do their business. That's all fine and good. You do have to clean up after them. If you are bringing any kind of a rodent, that's not going to fly, because obviously they can't have rodents running around on a ship. That historically does not end well for anybody. So that's a big no. But other than that, they're usually pretty good with pets on the ferry. Like, they've transported entire circuses up on the ferry before. That's how they get up here. So, animals on the ferry, not going to be a big deal. Now, for the living accommodations, once you get onto the ferry, you can do really one of three things. Number one, you can get a cabin, and these are going to be, kind of small. They're not going to be like huge cruise ship, size cabins, but it's going to be yours. You're not going to be sharing it with, 4 or 5 other people. So that's nice. The other option you have is you can go, sleep actually on one of the upper decks of the ferry. So if you're preferably coming up during the summertime, you can just go pitch a tent out there, get a sleeping mat, and just sleep out there. And that's pretty awesome if you can get that. But obviously you're not going to have the showers or, all that other stuff there as well. So, let you decide if that's going to be worth it to you or not. The other option that you do have is you can certainly go sleep in one of the forward lounges and, in one of the forward lounges that you're going to find inside the ferry. So, I do actually really enjoy that. I went on the ferry recently when I was going down to Kodiak. We'll talk more about that later, but now it's definitely the option that I had because I think we were getting there right around like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. So obviously I'm not going to stay awake the entire way. So just went to the forward lounge and slept there as much as I can. Do make sure you bring a pillow if you're going to be doing that, because that's not 100% comfortable just sitting there on the solid floor with just your rolled up hoodie as your pillow. So wouldn't recommend that. But yes, they do have some great options for you as far as the lodging goes on the ferry, just depending on your budget. We'll talk about the budget and some more pro tips I would give you as you're looking at jumping onto the ferry. But before we do make sure you go check out the link to my podcast down below, the Alaskan Journey podcast. And in that podcast, we do talk about everybody who has come up recently and kind of the tips that they have. And we do actually talk with a number of people who have come up on the ferry recently. So that's going to be a great source of information for you. So do make sure you go check that out. And also, if you would like a copy of my relocation guide, do make sure you reach out to me on my website down below and you just put relocation guide when you're going to register so I know what to send you. So let's go and finish today's video though, talking about the expenses and some of the pro tips I would give to people who are considering using the ferry. Now, in answering the question, how expensive is it to use the ferry? I don't really like trying to answer this question, and the reason for that is there are so many sliding variables is going to determine how much you're going to spend. For example, one of the biggest ones is just how quickly you can get onto the schedule and get booked, because as you get closer to the date that you're actually sailing, the costs are going to be graduating up as you go along. So you're going to do yourself a big favor if you can get onto the schedule as soon as possible. But just to give you a ballpark idea though, I was speaking with Alan Fox on a podcast interview I did about a year ago. And when he came up, he had a truck and he had about a 20-foot U-Haul truck loaded down. He had himself and his teenage son, and he had a dog with him as well. And all told, it was just about $8,000. So, about what you would expect for moving that much stuff. So just kind of use that as a baseline idea for how much it would cost for you to move up here, using the ferry, that is. So some ways that you can reduce the expenses when you're using the ferry is, number one, book as soon as possible. We've said that before, but book as soon as possible. As soon as that opening comes up to where you can schedule, jump on it, get yourself booked as quickly as possible. The second thing is if you can actually reduce the number of people with you, that can certainly help too. I'll let you decide if it's worth it for your family, for one of you to take the stuff on the ferry and everybody else just to fly up. I'll let you budget that out and see if that really makes sense to you. The next one is sleep in the forward lounge or sleep on the deck of the ferry. That is another way to reduce the cost as well if the expenses are really going to be a big factor for you. Now, getting to some pro tips. Number one, call ahead the day of and make sure that they are on schedule and that they are going to be there when they say they're going to be there. Because I actually had an experience in Kodiak not too long ago. Some of you might have heard of this, where I took the ferry from Homer down to Kodiak Island, took my car there so I could drive around. Absolutely beautiful experience. Love the island. It's probably a 3 to 4 day max kind of a location, but it was a great island and I do highly recommend it. And as I was heading home though, I kept getting these reports from people working within the government saying, hey, I'm not sure your ferry's going to be there. It sounded like they might not be, but the service kept saying, yeah, no, we'll be there, no worries, no worries. Well, the day right before, they're like, yeah, we're not going to be there, man. So make other arrangements. You can't park your car in our parking lot, and we won't drive it onto the ferry for you. So good luck figuring out how you're going to make that happen, how you're going to get your car back from Kodiak over to Eagle River, Alaska. So that was an entire adventure in of itself. But yes, all that to say, call ahead of time, make sure that they're still on pace, still on track to do what they say that they're going to do. Because, things do happen, but sometimes they don't communicate that very well to the public. The next thing I would say is pack plenty of snacks and make sure that you've got board games, you've got puzzles, you've got cards, you've got everything that you're going to need to keep yourself entertained for that time where you're not going to have any Wi-Fi. Also, if you think you're going to be using a vending machine, do make sure you bring quarters, because again, no Wi-Fi, you're not going to be able to really use your card over there. So if you want to use a vending machine, then just bring quarters. And last but not least, we already talked about this before, but do make sure that you bring a pillow, because that does start to get a little uncomfortable after about an hour or so. So these have been my tips for how to use the Alaska Marine Highway System, aka the ferry system. I sure hope it was useful. If you have any additional comments or anything you would add to this, feel free to put those in the comments section down below, and let's make this a very good resource and a great common thread for those who are thinking about using the ferry system. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.